Hello, friends. My name is Shraddha Jaiswal. I'm a senior verbal SME at e-GMAT, and I welcome all of you to this session on verb-ing modifiers. Now, modifiers itself is a very complex concept, and most of the non-natives, especially, they they quite a bit they suffer with, or they struggle rather, with this particular concept. And when we talk about verb-ing modifiers, that makes it even more difficult, because these modifiers become they can be a noun modifier, they can be action modifiers, and sometimes it becomes difficult to understand, firstly, to identify whether it's a noun modifier or it's an action modifier, and secondly, to understand, even if it's working as verb-ing action modifier, then what role is it playing? How is it fitting in the context of the sentence? Because the comma plus verb-ing modifier, when acts as an action modifier, has very specific roles. Well, let me not confuse you anymore with all of this, because all of these intricacies of this monstrous modifier, if I may say so, is included in the presentation today. So let's just begin here. So the goal of this session is to demonstrate the application of the meaning-based approach, which is the signature approach of e-GMAT. We pioneered this meaning-based approach, and we are at the third iteration of that approach. And really, once you embrace this approach, you will realize that it is really not so much about the concept that makes a difference in solving a question correctly or going wrong. It's really the approach that you apply to solve these questions, having that clarity in your head as to what you require really, what skill sets do you need to ace GMAT SC. Then whether it is modifiers question or parallelism question or any sort of question, if you have that approach in place, you can solve any question. And we will demonstrate the same today in this session, where we will solve 4 700 plus level questions, and we will do so in less than 2 minutes. Now, before I show you the questions, let's do a very quick recap of the concept that we are dealing with here. We are talking about verb-ing modifiers. In my intro, I told you why this modifier is confusing, because it can excuse me, it can modify noun and it can modify action also. When it comes to noun, modifying a noun entity, that's not a problem for us. But when a verb-ing modifier becomes an action modifier, it has a few tenets to it, right? The first tenet about it is its structure, the way it appears in the sentence. It will always appear after a clause, and there will be a comma before this modifier. So we will have a subject verb pair, the entire independent clause or any kind of a clause, and then a comma, and then the verb-ing modifier. The moment we see that structure, a clause, comma plus verb-ing modifier, we know that it's acting as an action modifier, and from there, the analysis begins. But if there is no comma before the verb-ing modifier, or there is no clause before the verb-ing modifier, then we know that this modifier is acting as a noun modifier. And I have a lot of examples in this in the next slide. So let's just first understand the classification well. Now, when we talk about action verb-ing modifiers, they can actually work as an action modifier in two ways. Firstly, they can describe the preceding sentence. They can provide some logical information about the preceding clause, rather, not the sentence, my bad. Also, they can present the result of the preceding action. So these are the two broader categories of action verb-ing modifiers. However, this describe category can again further be bifurcated into generic description and explicit information. And if you saw the videos, the solutions that we created for you before this session, the Caspian Sea question, there we see this thing happening, generic description, where the comma plus verb ing modifier actually comes to substantiate the modified action. The second way of, or the second part of this description is explicit information, which is the how part of the modified clause. And again, let's take a look at a few examples to understand how these modifiers work. But let me tell you that this very complex modifier is actually part of our free trial. And you can verb ing modifiers part 1. Please make a use of it, because this is a really complex modifier and it's available to you for free. So do take an advantage of this situation. Now, when we talk about any modifier, be it a noun modifier or an action modifier, there are 3 traits connected to the modifiers. The first one is every modifier must make sense in modifying whichever entity it modifies, whether it's a noun or it's an action. The second point we look at is its placement. And that's what I said, that if you have this clause and then the comma plus verb ing modifier, you know you are dealing with an action modifier. But if there is no comma, there is just a noun and then comes a verb ing modifier, or before the noun when a verb ing modifier comes, then you know that it's acting as a noun modifier. So this placement of the modifier plays a very, very important role in the sentence. Also, in complex sentences, the placement should be correct. If there are 2 clauses and the author is using a comma plus verb ing modifier to modify one specific clause, then the placement has to be that correct, so that the modifier actually modifies the intended clause and not the clause that it does not intend to modify. Another tenet, which is very, very crucial again, is it should not bring any ambiguity. Your modifier must give you logical modification, and it also must present absolutely clear modification. There should be nothing left to our inference when we read the modification presented by the modifier. And all these 3 traits are applicable to both noun and action modifiers. So here we are dealing with a few simple examples governing the noun modifiers. So look at the placement over here. We are saying, wearing a black shirt, Joe played with the puppy. So here the the verb ing modifier appears before the clause, which is Joe played with the puppy. Now, when we have a situation like this, then we can say that, okay, when we have a structure like this, the modifier can modify either the whole clause, which then it will act as an action modifier, or it can only act as a noun modifier talking about Joe. So how will we know that? The answer is very, very simple. It is the context of the sentence which will tell us whether the opening verb ing modifier right at the beginning of the sentence is meant to modify the action or is meant to modify the verb. And this is where we are opening up to the meaning-based approach, because we are relying on the meaning of the sentence to guide us through the grammar that has been used in the sentence. So when we say wearing a black shirt, Joe played with the puppy, does it make any logical connection or any logical sense to say that wearing the black shirt has got anything to do with Joe playing with the puppy? Not really. Not that Joe will only play with the puppy when he's wearing a black shirt. It could be a blue shirt, no shirt, white shirt, yellow shirt, whatever, right? So we understand that wearing a black shirt is only presenting some extra information about Joe. When he was playing with the puppy at that time, he was wearing a black shirt. So the meaning is absolutely clear. It is placed correctly. There is no problem with the placement, and there is no ambiguity whatsoever in this sentence as to what wearing is talking about. Let's reconstruct the same sentence and let's change the placement of the modifiers a little bit. Because wearing a black shirt is meant to modify Joe, what we can do is we can place this modifier between the subject and the verb. But when we do so, we can put these two commas that you see enclosing wearing a black shirt, or we can choose to write this sentence. Oops. We can write to choose this sentence. I'm sorry about that. I'll have to go back in my presentation here. Okay. Yeah. So we can go back in our, sorry, here. Yeah. So we can write those two commas as you see in example 2, or we can remove the two commas. But the point to note here is that either if we are using comma, then it has to be two commas. But if we are not using commas, then none of the commas should be there in the sentence. If we read the sentence with the commas or without the commas, the meaning will still be very clear. It makes sense to say that Joe is wearing a black shirt, or Joe was wearing a black shirt when he played with the puppy. The placement is absolutely fine, and there is no ambiguity whatsoever in the sentence. Now, what if we want to talk about, or let's read the sentence first. Joe played with the puppy wearing a black collar, right? So, the moment we use the word collar over here, we understand that we use collars for pets, right? So, definitely, who was wearing a black collar? It was the puppy who was wearing a black collar, and accordingly, we have changed the placement of the modifier in the sentence to keep this sentence logical. It is placed correctly right after the puppy because that's the entity that it is meant to modify, and there's absolutely no ambiguity in the meaning that is presented by this sentence. So um, in all the three cases, be whatever be the placement, wherever it is situated in the sentence, the function of the noun modifier is to present some extra information about the noun that it modifies. Now, we will discuss about the verb ing modifiers that act as action modifiers. So things become a little kind of complex in here, but we will still get through it. So, as we discussed earlier, a verb ing modifier, when it acts as an action modifier, it can perform these three functions. It can either describe the preceding clause, as I gave you the example of the Caspian Sea, where it was supporting the modified action, or it can present the how aspect, or it can present the result. And on your screen, I have a couple of examples related to all these three functions. So let's take a look at example 4. Amy skipped school, giving the excuse of stomach ache. Okay, so here we can say that Amy skipped school and she did it by giving the excuse of stomach ache. The startup closed all its operation, citing political instability as the primary reason. So here, these two modifiers are really talking about the preceding action. The startup closed all its operation, and the company also gave the reason why did they close all its operation. So you see, there is a logical connection between the action that has been performed and the modifier that explains this action, that yes, the startup closed all its operation, and it also provided the reason for doing so. So there is that connection between the two actions, the modified action and the modifier action. Now, how to present the how aspect? Arranging rare exotic flowers in a symmetric pattern, Mary made a beautiful bouquet. So, how did Mary make a beautiful bouquet? She did so by arranging rare exotic flowers, right? If we look at example 7, here we have singing a beautiful song, Sam mesmerized everyone present in the room. It answers again the same question. How did Sam mesmerize everyone? He did so by singing a beautiful song. Now, a thing to notice over here is that we can actually change the placement of these modifiers in example 6 and example 7 and can place them after the clause. Nothing will change in this case. So when a description is taking place through the verb ing modifier, the modifier can be written either in the either before the modified clause or after the modified clause. So that's the point that you want to note, that when the verb ing modifier is acting as an action modifier and presenting the description in any way, generic description as we see in examples 4 and 5, or the how aspect in example 6 and 7, we can write the modifier before the clause and after the clause. Both are fine. However, this flexibility is not available to the verb ing modifier that has specifically been used to present the result. And I'll tell you the reason why. Mary made a beautiful bouquet, winning accolades from everyone. So, Mary made a beautiful bouquet, and as a result, she won accolades or appreciation from everyone. Now, when we talk about cause and effect or the result of an action, we are talking about cause and effect, and effect always happens after the clause. So there is this inherent sequencing between the cause and the effect, in which effect always takes place later. And that is the reason why when we use a comma plus verb ing modifier to present the result, it must always be written after the modified entity, after the modified action. Okay, so this thing we'll have to keep in mind, because there are many official sentences I have seen where the result actually is written before the cause. The sentence starts maybe with the verb ing modifier, which is actually presenting the result, and the cause is written later, and that sequencing is absolutely wrong. We cannot do so. So that's a point to note. Make a quick note of that, because this is how we analyze that. Okay, if it is an action, it must be written after the clause. However, you can see 6 examples on your screen right now, but every single example is following the same thing, same theme. All the modifiers present absolutely clear meaning. Okay, they are all modifying actions, and they are playing absolutely they are giving absolutely clear meaning. Another thing to note is that the doer of the modifier entity and the modified entity is the same. For example, if I take example 7, which is singing a beautiful song, Sam mesmerized everyone present in the room. So, who mesmerized everyone? Sam. That is my modified action. And what is the modified action? Singing a beautiful song. So, that's my modified action. Now, who sang the song? Of course, it is Sam, right? So, the doer of, because we are saying that Sam mesmerized everyone by singing a beautiful song. So, it's very, very logical to say that the doer of both the actions is the same. It's the Sam. Let's take an example of in the result part of it. If I take an example through example 8, Mary made a beautiful bouquet. So who made the beautiful bouquet? Definitely Mary, winning accolades from everyone. Now, who won these accolades? Again, the answer is the same. It is Mary, because she created the bouquet, and for that she received appreciation, right? So this is another very specific trait of the verb ing modifiers, that the doer and the doer of the modified action and the modified action will always be the same. And yeah, there are official sentences that actually test your knowledge in that. So we have to be very, very careful about that. Next, actions presented in sequence, cause and effect. I just spoke about that the structure always have to be the modified action and then the comma plus verb ing modifier. So this is a very specific trait of presenting the result through the comma plus verb ing modifier. With the rest of them, you can place them before the clause or after the clause. But when you are using the comma plus verb ing modifier to present the result, it must always appear after the modified clause. Okay, so with this, now we have completed the overall concept about verb ing modifiers acting as a noun modifier and as an action modifier. Now what we are going to learn is how to apply. Now, while we are applying These modifiers, and we will do so in a few minutes through our 4 official questions that I have for you in this session today. These are the few points that you must keep in mind while you are analyzing a sentence for the usage of the verb ing modifiers. Modifiers must make sense with the modified entity. Every modifier used in the sentence must be 100% logical. The placement must be absolutely precise, otherwise, the modification may be ambiguous. And of course, there should not be any ambiguity. These were the traits that we spoke about in our opening slides as well. Also, how to determine whether it's an action modifier, whether it's a noun modifier, whether it is presenting result, whether it is presenting how aspect. Pay attention to the context of the sentence through the entities used in the sentence and the meaning that the sentence presents you. It's very, very important to pay attention to the meaning of the sentence, which will help you ascertain or identify the grammar in the sentence, whether it's right or wrong. Are we really talking about a noun in the sentence, or are we talking about a particular action? Depending on the context of the sentence, we will decide whether we need a noun verb ing modifier or an action verb ing modifier. So context is the key. Keep that in mind. Also, as I say, focus on understanding the meaning of the sentence. And that's when you can focus on the context. So your first thing should be, let me first read the sentence and try to understand the meaning. And then we will understand, and then you can understand the concept, and then start looking at the answer choices. So your answer, looking at the answer choices will come right at the end. And if you're confused as to how to use this method, don't worry about that. I'm going to show you how to use this method as we move along. Now, we have some free supplement lessons in all the 3 subsections of verbal, and this free trial is available till Saturday. So make the best use out of it. Go to e-GMAT.com, register for free, and then use the free trial. No money needed for that. All right. So also, very quickly, I want to say here that we have the GMAT reading comprehension webinar coming up this Saturday. If you want to learn the key reading strategies, how to ace GMAT RC, this is the session to be. Harsha will be there, absolutely unparalleled teacher in RC, and I'll be there also in this session to take you through at least an official question. Also, coming up on Sunday, we have a live session on algebra. So if you need a little help with quant, do register for this free webinar as well. The links are given to you on your chat box, so you can make use of those links and register yourself. Make sure to register faster because the seats are limited and they really get filled up very, very fast. And we are just 2 days away from the weekend. So yeah, without further ado, let me give you some just a little tips to solve the questions, how we're going to do about it. Of course, we are solving 4 questions here. Now, do not write your answers on the chat box. Okay, you will see the question, and what will happen is that there will be a link will be provided for MS Forms. So you go to Forms, you click your answer there, and then you come back. And then we will talk about the questions. Okay. Do not please mention your answers on the chat because that can influence other people's thought process also. All right. So that's my request to you. Do not post your answers in the chat box. Once you are done finishing that question, I can take a quick look at all the questions that you have solved. How did you do? And then we will go on to discuss the question. Also, there is no timer on MS Form. Sorry about that, but I cannot put any timer over there. So it totally depends on you that you are timing yourself. Do not take more than 2 minutes to solve any question. Okay. 2 minutes is a good enough time to solve the question. The moment you go to MS Forms, fill up your answer, come back and let us know that you're back. okay, so that we can carry on the session in a smooth way. So let's hear from you. Are you all ready for your first official question? And by the way, as I said earlier, just a reminder, all the questions in this session are official questions from official guides, and they are all 700 plus level questions. Okay. So are you all ready? Uh, Jaydeep, I see a question. So GMAT Club, can I say when a verb ing modifier is used, the independent clause has to be active voice only because the passive voice. So Jaydeep, this question will be answered once you answer this question. I knew that students have these questions. They are like myths or almost. So we will burst all these myths when we solve the question. Okay. So hold on to that question. The moment you solve this question, you will know the answer to that one. Okay. Um, Jeff, first, okay, so let's not talk about the active and the passive. Just give me your thumbs up if you guys are ready to see your first question, because the moment you see that first question, you will see what's going on. Ready? Okay, I guess most of you are ready. So here is the first question on your screen, and soon, yes, soon there will be. There you go. I can see that on chat, the form is already there. Click on that link, put in your answers, and come back in 2 minutes. Don't take too long. I'll see you guys later. If you're done solving this question, you can put in the chat box that you're back so that I know when to start the discussion. Are you guys done solving? Okay, Ashutosh said done. Sricharan says done. Tejas gives me a thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, I think I will begin the discussion of this question. I have gotten enough response for this one. Okay. So, this question is from Official Guide, and it really addresses the problem that Jaideep raised a few minutes ago, that can we use a comma plus verb ing modifier to modify a sentence or to modify a clause or an action that is written in the passive voice. Many students have this thing in their head that comma plus verb ing modifier can only modify an action in the active voice, but that is not the case, and this official question proves it for us. So let's try to understand what's going on with this sentence. Also, if I'll quickly give you the stats for this question. I have 20 responses for these questions, out of which 17 people chose the correct answer. Two people chose choice E, and one person chose choice D. So I'll definitely reveal it to you, which is the correct answer, but we'll have to wait a little bit. Right now, I want you to focus on the analysis of this question, because right now, what I'm going to show you is the three-step meaning-based approach that we apply at e-GMAT. We teach our students, and we recommend every GMAT taker to imbibe, because it's really not so much about knowing all the concepts and learning all the concepts, but really the application of the concept through the correct method. I mean, we can learn all the concepts, all the grammatical concepts. That's one part of learning, but the learning is not complete unless we put our learnings into application. And that is what we are going to demonstrate right now. Now, at e-GMAT, you will always see, if you've seen any of our video solutions before, if you've attended our free sessions on our platform on weekends, you will see that every SC question, when we solve it, we do not read the whole sentence in one go. We break it into smaller chunks. Why? Because when you read a sentence in one go, I mean, this sentence is not very long, but suppose if you have a sentence that's pretty long, has lot of layers of information in it, is very context heavy, then in that case, if you read the whole sentence in one go, you will you will experience information overload. And when that happens, our mind cannot put 2 plus 2 together. It becomes very difficult to focus on certain part and try to understand, hey, wait, what did I just read? That happens all the time. So if that happens to you while reading SE problems, you know what to do. You are not supposed to read the whole sentence in one go. You give it some time. You give some time to your original sentence, read it properly, and try to extract the meaning. And we do so by breaking it down in smaller chunks. So the sentence says in 1974. That means we are going to talk about an action, or we are going to read about an action that took place in 1974. A large area of the surface of Mercury, I'm going to go back in here and let's see if I can use the pen. Okay, so the sentence says that a large area of here a large area of the surface of Mercury was photographed. So, what happened in 1975? Sorry, 1974. Um, the surface of Mercury, in fact, a large surface of Mercury was photographed. Then we have from varying distances. Okay. So, this action was done from different distances, right? From different distances, which revealed a degree of cratering. So, this action of photography, or if we put it in the context, we understand that, okay, the pictures were taken, and when the pictures were studied, we saw that there was a degree of cratering on the surface of Mercury, reading the last part, which was similar to the cratering of the moon's cratering or crater, right? So the last part of the sentence is actually comparing the cratering between moon and the cratering between the craters on the moon and the craters on Mercury. But how did we come to know about that? We could only make that comparison when we looked at the photographs of the surface of the Mercury that were taken in 1974. So now that we understand the meaning of the sentence, let's put everything together and see what's going on in this sentence. Now, the sentence says that Mercury's surface was photographed in 1974. The pictures showed the extent of cratering, and so because there are craters on Mercury, the comparison came up with those craters with the craters of moon. So if we take a look at this sentence, we can say that the sentence presents logical meaning. Logically, this sentence is not compromising on the meaning that it contains. So, this was our first step, which is meaning analysis. Now, let's move on to the second step, which is grammar analysis. Whether the sentence uses correct grammar. When we do that, we see that, okay, I see this word which over here, which is in underlined portion. Now, how do we use which? Well, we all know that we use which to modify a noun. So are we saying that it is the varying distances that reveal a degree of cratering? Is it the distances that reveal the cratering information? Not at all. We understand that it's the photographs that reveal the degree of cratering, right? But so we know that the use of which is absolutely incorrect in this sentence. So this is my grammatical error that I figured out in choice in the original sentence, or let's say choice A. Okay, that's the problem. So if it is not the distances, then what is it? That it is the pictures, right? Now, the thing to note over here is that the word photographs or pictures has not been used anywhere in the sentence. Okay, so we will have to deal with the sentence in a way so that the intended meaning is absolutely presented, right? However, there's one more thing going on in this sentence. What's happening here? Look at this term over here, and lot many students actually get this question correct on the basis of the usage of the comparison and not so much on the usage of the modifier, because the confusion continues to carry on as to how can we use verb ing modify here, this that. But yes, this comparison part, actually it's a giveaway in this sentence to arrive at the correct answer choice. So you also have to ask yourself whether, because we are in the verb ing modifier session, did you really take help of the comparison part to get to the right answer, or did you really focus on the verb ing part and the modifier part, and you did all the analysis that you required to do? So do that introspection. Also, the usage of, as I was talking, that of moons is not right, because that already refers to a degree of cratering. By using apostrophe with moons, we are going to repeat the same noun again. We are again going to say moon's degree of cratering. So the last part actually is saying now similar to a degree of cratering of the moon's degree of cratering. So that's a redundancy in the sentence. And so we have this blatant grammatical error in the sentence. So these are the two errors that make us reject choice A. We know for sure that the choice A is not the correct answer. Okay. So, with this, when we move on to our answer choice analysis, and by the way, answer choice analysis is the third step in our three-step meaning based approach. And let me tell you this step is the shortest step, in the sense that it should take the shortest amount of time or the smallest amount of time when you are solving an SC question. Now you will say, are you suggesting that we spend, say, and we say that spend 60% of your time spent to solve a question only with the original sentence? So you'll say, okay, you are suggesting that spend 60% of your time only with one choice and reserve 40% for the rest of the four answer choices. The math does not make sense to me here. The point here is that choice A, or the original, or let's say the original sentence, is not there just to present one of the answer choices. This is one mindset that we need to change about SC. The original sentence that you are dealing with is not there only to present you one of the five answer choices. The original sentence is there to communicate the meaning that the author of the sentence wants you to understand. This is the communication piece that's coming from the author. And so, when we talk about understanding the meaning of the sentence, it has to come from the original sentence. And that's why we tell you that spend all that time with the original sentence so that you understand the meaning. Because just think about a scenario when you want to talk to somebody, or when you want to present something in writing, you first think about the logic, right? What is it that I'm going to say? First you decide on that, and then you think, okay, I want to say this, so let me see how can I say this, right? So it's the what part of your communication and how part of your communication, and what part is always more important than the how part, because that's your first step in communication. So this what part is what we call as the logical part of the sentence. That is where the meaning of the sentence is there. And then, whatever the author wants to communicate, he chooses how, what kind of grammar shall I use to present this idea. So, when we were reading this sentence, we understood that yes, the meaning was fine, but the author big time botched up the grammar of the sentence, and it is absolutely evident with the usage of which and that of with apostrophe moons, the possessive moons, right? So, we get the clear idea what the sentence wants to say, but the grammar is all botched up here. So, choice A is not the correct answer. Choice B says that that the Mercury was photographed from varying distances to reveal a degree of cratering similar to the moon. Was it really the intention to click the pictures? Well, it could be. Probably in 1974, the surface of Mercury was photographed to understand its degree of cratering so that it could be compared with the cratering in the moon. But we don't know about that. We are not very sure about that information. Okay. Also, the comparison again is wrong in this sentence. We are comparing a degree of cratering with moon, similar to the moon. We cannot really compare the degree of cratering with moon. So choice B is out. So again, think about it. Did you really look at the modifiers to reject the incorrect answer choice, or were you taking shelter of this blatant comparison error in the sentence that led you to the correct answer choice? As we can see, choice C is the correct answer over here, revealing a degree of cratering similar to that of the moon. The comparison is all set. I'm not going to talk about that. Let's talk about why comma plus verb ing modifier is making sense in the sentence. So, Jaydeep, this is the answer to your question. The verb that we have in our main sentence is a passive voice verb, but the correct answer has still used the comma plus verb ing modifier. So that's the it can be done. We can use comma plus verb ing modifier to modify a passive voice verb. Now, somebody mentioned that how does it make sense to, passive voice, but the modifiers are in active voice? Many of you can say that the modifier here is in active voice. Let me tell you something and write it down if you need to. Only the verbs have voice. Nothing else in English grammar contains voice. Nothing else contains tense also. Only verbs have tense, only verbs have voice. These two qualities are absolutely exclusively reserved for the verbs. So we cannot say that a modifier is in active voice. That's a wrong thing to say, absolutely. So it is the what does the modifier do? The modifier takes in the word or the tense. It just adapts itself to the tense of the modified action, but it doesn't have any voice as such. So get that thing very, very clear in your head, okay? Because I know that students do get confused about it. So revealing a degree of cratering, why comma plus verb ing modifier is correct over here? Because this modifier is actually presenting the result of the preceding action. The mercury was photographed, or the surface of the mercury was photographed, and as a result we saw that the surface of mercury revealed a degree of cratering. Just ask yourself, if the photographs were not taken at all, could could we see the degree of cratering on the surface of mercury? No, that result would not have happened. This whole point would not have been revealed if the mercury was not photographed. So we are definitely talking about an action that is dependent on another action to become true, right? And that's why comma plus verb ing modifier is correct here, because it is in the relationship of cause and effect with the modified action. So that's why choice C is absolutely correct. Now, why choice D is wrong? And revealed, that connection between was photographed and revealed is now gone. Because it was photographed, because mercury was photographed, it could reveal the degree of cratering on its surface. That cause and effect, that logical connection between these two actions is now gone with choice D, because it is making, okay, mercury was photographed, that's one independent action, and mercury revealed cratering similar to the moon. That's what it's saying. It has got nothing to do with the action of was photographed, and that is not the intended meaning of the sentence. And that's why I can reject choice D so easily. Also, we see there is this comparison problems. Cratering has again been um, cratering similar in degree to the moon. So cratering has again been um, compared to the moon. So that's a wrong comparison. Again, that and which we saw in choice A, we don't need a noun modifier. So definitely this answer choice is also out. So it was easy to reject choice E, because we know that we neither can use which nor we can use that, because then it'll end up modifying the preceding noun. So the correct answer choice is indeed choice B, which is talking about how, or the result of, which is presenting the result of the preceding clause. Okay. So do you guys have any questions here? Um but another passive voice would be wrong. The books was dropped by Sam, scaring the cats. The passive voice would be wrong, right? Jadip, there is only one. I told you. Jadip, I guess now you understand that modifiers do not have voice at all. So that if you say that the books were dropped by Sam, scaring the cats, that sentence is also incorrect any which way. Comma plus that e noun, I thought that was the case with comma plus which only. Again, do not use That's again a suggestion from our side. We always tell our students that do not let a punctuation mark decide whether you want to select or reject an answer choice. You have a more dependable factor in the sentence that can tell you whether it is right or wrong. So just don't say, oh, we cannot use comma plus that. No, it doesn't work like that. Rely more on more deterministic issues in the sentence rather than depending on um on punctuation marks. So don't do that. All right. All right. So I think that you guys are clear with this. If you have any questions, you can put it on the chat box. And I have Kanupriya helping me with this session. I'm sorry I did not mention her before, but yes, she is there with me, uh, supporting me through the subject matter related questions that you may have for the questions that we do here. Okay. All right. So, if all the questions, so Jaideep, I hope that you understand that how things work with comma plus verb ing modifiers. They really don't have any voice. So, don't get caught up. But keep in mind that, like the example that you said, the books were dropped, and then you use a comma plus verb ing modifier. Now, is the doer of the modifier same, scaring the cat? I mean, the action scared the cat, but yeah, you can say the books scared the cat, so whatever. But that's not the way of doing it like that. Photographed is also a part of the verb, right? It's not the object in the sentence. No, Anuj. Was photographed is the verb in the sentence. Because if we cannot say large area of surface of Mercury was from varying distances. No, the verb is was photographed. Okay. All right. I guess with this, we can move on to our next question. But before that, just a little commercial break over here. Just to remind you, we have a wonderful RC session coming up on Saturday. And on Sunday, we have the algebra webinar. It's a free webinar that happens at e-GMAT, on our platform. So, yep, do join us for these two. The links to register is on the screen. So please go ahead, register yourself. The seats are limited and they fill up really, really fast. Okay. Okay. Jaideep, yes. I think we'll go with that. Okay. So now that we are ready with question number 2, I hope all of you are ready. I'm showing you the question on the screen. Very soon, you will see the link for that question in the chat box. The drill remains the same. Come back in 2 minutes and do let me know when you come back so that I can start the analysis. Thank you and all the best. Keep that meaning hat on all the time. All right, I can see some of you are saying that you are back. Anand says there are some pretty funny meaning errors on some of the options. I'm glad that you're looking at the meaning errors, Anand, and you're not saying that, oh, this is this idiom or that idiom or this verb or that verb. Gives me a lot of confidence that the meaning based approach is catching up. So good. Very nice. I'll wait for a few more seconds maybe before I start the analysis because last time I got 20 responses. Not that I'm saying that I'll wait till all 20 responses that I get, but yeah, let's wait a few more seconds. Let's give. Yes, Tejas, that is absolutely correct. We should start with the meaning because if we don't start with the meaning, we will not understand what the sentence is trying to say. And unless we don't understand what the sentence is trying to say, we will never be able to figure out what grammar to use to express that meaning. And once you understand the logic, it will be very easy for you to eliminate the answer choices. Not only few options, but all the incorrect options that do not adhere to the logic that the sentence wants to present. Okay, so I guess I've gotten enough responses to begin the analysis of this question. Just to begin with, 56% of you went with the correct answer choice. So, congratulations. Very, very good job. The next best popular answer choice is choice E. And then there is a tie between C and D. And then A got just one vote. So, not too many, not a fan for this one. Okay, so let's understand what's going on with this question. Now, this question is definitely pretty dense. So, we are definitely going to divide it into smaller portions and we'll deal with it one at a time. So, the sentence says astronomers have uncovered evidence. So, astronomers have found some evidence. What is that evidence? That a star, now the sentence is describing that evidence because that's the natural question that comes to my mind when I say, okay, astronomers have uncovered evidence. So, what is that evidence, or what about uncovering that evidence? So, what is that evidence? That a star that was as bright as the full moon. So, they discovered the evidence that there was a star that was as bright as the full moon, exploding into view 340,000 years 340,000 years ago. Okay, so this particular star exploded into view. It came into view through an explosion some 340,000 years ago. That's pretty old. Okay, emitting dazzling radiation. So, what happened because of that explosion and coming to the view? The star emitted dazzling radiation that could have, so this radiation, what it could have done, it could have disrupted Earth's protective ozone layer and sunburned our Stone Age ancestors. Wow, pretty dense sentence, lot of information, layers after layers. So, if we put everything together, we understand that the sentence is saying, and let me quickly change the color of my pen here. Astronomers have found evidence about a particular star. And then what we read in the entire sentence, from beginning right from here. Okay. Right. So all this part, from this part till this part, it's all talking about this star and what that evidence is composed of. Okay. So, what is the star? The star was as bright as the full moon. It is the star that exploded into view some 340,000 years back. Because of this explosion, emitting radiation was released. And what that radiation did, it could have, again, it could have, not that it did, but the possibility is that probably it had two negative impacts. First is it disrupted the ozone layer. So now, I mean, now we can attribute the the reason why we have the hole in the ozone. And the second one is, it probably sunburnt our Stone Age ancestors because the radiation was so high. So when we put everything together, we understand that the meaning presented by the sentence is not very logical. The meaning has to be inferred. Why? Because if we follow the grammar, right, a star that was as bright as the full moon, here the full moon is basically the way the verb ing modifier is used here in this sentence. It is actually talking about the full moon. It is not talking about the star. But from the context of the sentence, we understand that it is the star that exploded into view. It is not the full moon that exploded into view. So so again, see, there's two way of saying it. Either I can say that yes, from the context I understand the meaning, but the original sentence is not making sense. Or we can say that the original sentence is not making sense. From the context I understand that it has to be star. It's really what you are looking at first. Okay. So from the context we understand that exploding, this action should be connected with star and not with the full moon. So that's my first logical issue with this sentence. Another problem that I see with choice A or with the original sentence is that a star is a subject, right? Astronomers have found evidence that a star that was as bright as the full moon, exploding into view, emitting dazzling radiation, could have disrupted, could have sunburned. Where is the verb for my subject star? There is no verb in this sentence for the subject star. And that's a blatant error in SC. Finding a missing subject or a missing verb. If you found that error, move on to the next. There's no way staying back and analyzing that sentence further, because that's a very blatant error in GMAT SC. All right. So there is no verb over here. Now that I understand the logic of the sentence, and now that I have identified the logical errors and the grammatical error in the sentence, you know what? I can actually spend a few more seconds with the sentence and I can actually predict what my correct answer choice should look like. And how do I do that? I tell myself that, okay, star doesn't have a verb, and exploding should not be talking about the full moon, right? Because, there is no comma here. This verb ing modifier is written straight after the full moon. So, how can I correct all this error? If I change exploding into the verb exploded, then my sentence will become absolutely correct. Because just by making this one change, I will take care of the logical error that the full moon exploded. That's what the sentence is saying. That error will be solved, and a star will get its verb also. A star that was as bright as the full moon exploded into view, and then I have comma plus verb ing modifier that presents the result of this star exploding into view. So, this is the kind of clarity that we get when we deal with the original sentence in this kind of a detail. We first understand the logic, then we understand the grammar. Because the grammar used in the sentence is not presenting the logic that I need to change the grammar to get that logic out of it. And that's where I change my exploding into exploded to make everything fall in place in this sentence. And there is no surprise for you to see that choice B indeed is the correct answer, that exactly did what I preempted. And it's not that it's only me who can do it. You can do it too, because it's that simple, because we are all logical people. If we go by our logic, we will be able to actually predict the correct answer choice for some of the SC questions. And the moment I get this, I am so sure of my selection. And see how quick my my answer choice analysis will become. I know choice A is wrong because it's not presenting me the right meaning. Full moon exploding, definitely this was the reason I rejected choice A for. So choice C is also wrong. And then evidence of a star is also wrong, because the sentence intends to present what is that evidence. The evidence is that there was a star that exploded and it did all of these things. That's the evidence. I mean, yeah, the evidence is about the star and not of a star. I mean, evidence of a star, evidence is not really a star, right? It's the whole thing that happened in the form of the action. So that's why off does not work in this sentence. um, Full moon exploding into the view, and that it emitted. Again, so the parallel list over here is that was bright as moon and that it emitted, which again does not fall in place in choice C. So choice C is also incorrect. Again, as full moon of a star as bright as the full moon exploding into view. Now something, very unique is happening in choice D. You see, we have a comma plus verb ing modifier over here in choice D, right? Do we have a clause right before it? A star of a star as bright as the full moon? No, there is no clause because there is no subject verb. But if I look into my non underlined portion of the sentence, we do have a clause over here. I have astronomers as my subject and have uncovered as my verb. So, do you know really what choice D is saying? That astronomers have uncovered something, and as a result, they exploded into view 340,000 years ago and they emitted dazzling radiation. This is what is happening in choice D with the usage of comma plus verb ing modifier. And that's why I know that this is absolutely wrong, because all this information is true of the star, not of anybody else in this sentence. So this is see, again, we can take help of other things in the sentence, but because we are dealing with comma plus verb ing modifiers, I'm bringing out these areas of analysis for you so that you can think over these things and understand the application of these modifiers. That how, if I see something like this in a sentence, I will have to take it back to whatever action or whatever clause I have available, and then analyze, does it really make sense to say that because astronomers have uncovered evidence, they exploded into view and they emitted dazzling radiation? That's absolutely logical. So choice D is out. And when I have this meaning based approach in my hand, I'll tell you, you understand full moon exploding, incorrect meaning, you reject it. Full moon exploding, incorrect meaning. Exploding and emitting, talking about astronomers, absolutely wrong. Full moon that exploded, absolutely wrong. It would take you literally 10 seconds to reject all the four incorrect answer choices only on the basis of the meaning of the sentence. I don't need to care about of a star, whether it is correct or not, what is the implication of this usage in the sentence. I don't have to worry about all of that. All I have to worry about is, well, yeah, I understand from the context that it is the star that exploded. So choice A and choice C have the same error. Choice D is absolutely taking it out of proportion, and choice E is presenting the same error that we saw in choices A and C, but in a different structure. That's about it. And so it is undoubtedly choice B, which is the correct answer in this question. As simple as that. Okay. Jaideep, I think you have a question. In E, that exploded and that emitted is referring to moon or star. It is referring to moon. See, that we have that, right? It's a noun modifier which modifies the preceding noun. So, preceding noun is full moon. So, it is talking about full moon. So, it's wrong. Okay. Okay. So, next, we understood all of this, what's happening in choice A and what's happening in choice E. I told you they are presenting exactly the same meaning, but through different structures. So, this is what we need to pay attention to, the structure. And first, we understand the grammar, and then we look into the grammar, whether we are using the correct grammar to present the same meaning. So, the idea here is not to stay on the surface of the sentence, and you can only dig deeper into the sentence if you are not looking at the grammar. You first need to look into the context, the meaning, unlayer each piece of information to understand how everything has been put in together in that sentence, to and what is it that through all of this the author wants to communicate. Focus on that. Okay, focus on that part. Ashutosh, you have a question. How to distinguish whether that referring to preceding noun or it is acting as a connector? Ashutosh, your question is a very pertinent question, but it is out of scope of our discussion. But we have a wonderful article on GMAT Club itself, how that helps you mystify a difficult sentence. If you look at that at some point in time, I'll try to pull the link for you. But if you look at that, I mean, we've done all of that. We've given answers to all those questions already. It's there in GMAT Club Verbal Resources. If you look for it, learn how that helps you demystify a complex sentence. There we talk about how to identify whether that has been used as a connector or it has been used as a modifier. Okay, again, the context of the sentence, that as a connector will talk about something independent, but that which is acting as a noun modifier, it is specifically talking about the preceding noun. So you can make that distinction only if you pay attention to the context, that what is following that, is it talking about a different thing altogether, a different section altogether, or it is elaborating on the previous sentence, okay, a previous noun. So that way. But yeah, everything is available out there. I've seen that modifiers also refer to nouns a bit far away. Yes, Jaideep, it does. But in this context, again, there are certain criteria for that to happen. Once again, I would say that there is a beautiful article that we wrote way back in 2012, which says noun modifiers can modify far away noun. Again, the most loved article till date on GC. You can go take a look at that and read about it. Okay, because we are only dealing with verb ing modifiers in this session, so your questions are a little out of scope for this session. Okay, so uh, let's be respectful to time and stick to the scope of our session, so that we can cover more questions and we can really, as the title goes, change or modify this foe into a friend. That's what my goal is today. Okay. Okay. So again, free supplement is available. You have a chance to get access to that. So make sure that you do register to our platform to avail all this wonderful free articles. Okay. With this, we are ready for our third question. Are we all ready for our third question? This is another official difficult question coming up your way. Are you ready? If yes, then put your thumbs up so then and then I can show you the question and the poll will go out for that. Okay, looks like most of you are ready to see this question. So here you go. The question is called butterflies. I mean, we call it butterflies. The link will be the link is already there on your chat box. So go to that forms and all the very best. Again, keep your logical hat on. Okay, do let me know once you are done doing this question. Do put a thumbs up or something. Just let me know if you're done. Okay, I'm looking at your results now. Waiting for a few more responses. You guys are doing pretty good. The momentum is going great over here. Let me tell you that. Well, I know this particular question does not seem to be very difficult, but yes, if we go by the stats, what OG has to present, then yeah, it has been qualified as a difficult question there. Okay. All right. So I guess I have enough information here. Let's see how many votes. 17 so far. All right. I think we are ready to discuss this question. So far, the responses that I have gotten, you guys have done tremendously well on this question. 71% of you did mark this question correctly, which is very, very awesome. But once again, I would say, ask yourself, did you take help of something else to arrive at the correct answer choice? Or are you focusing on the meaning with regards to the usage of the comma plus verb ing modifier in this sentence? So, yeah, there's an equal split between B, C, and E, just getting one votes each, and two votes have come for choice A. But by far, the stats right now is 72%. So I received yet another response, and so the stats have changed a little bit. 72% for D, two votes for A, and one vote each for B, C, and E. So let's tackle this question as to what's happening in here. Okay. So this is a very squiggly sentence. That's the only word that comes to my mind every time I look at this sentence. Very sweet, very small, not very daunting. Butterflies come, very beautiful also, right? When you talk about butterflies, you already feel so nice. Okay. Butterflies come in more than 17,000 species, displaying a wing pattern unique to each one. Okay. Now, my only thing is here, there it's not a very difficult sentence to understand. It is something which is very relatable. It is something which I, as I said, it induces feel good factor in you. But I really need to look into the grammar of the sentence to understand what is the meaning that I'm getting from the way the sentence is written over here. So if I see that the sentence is using comma plus verb ing modifier, what's the meaning that I'm getting here? What are the possibilities that the meanings that I can get? So can I say it's presenting the how aspect of it? Butterflies come in more than 17,000 species by displaying a wing pattern. No, I mean, it's the fact is that they come in 17,000 species and they display a wing pattern, not that their action of displaying the displaying a wing pattern has got anything to do with they coming in 17,000 species. I mean, just think about it. If the butterflies came in 18,000 species, would they not display wing pattern or unique wing pattern? Has it really got to do something with that magic number? No, not really. So definitely the how aspect does not make sense. Does it make sense to say that we have a cause and effect here? Because butterflies come in more than 17,000 species, they display a wing pattern unique to each other. It's again that cause and effect coming in, that only because they come in 17,000 species, they display a unique wing pattern. That's not the right causality also, right? And then there's no way that comma plus verb ing modifier presents any logical reason or any logical modification in the sentence. So the way the sentence is written, we can easily say that the sentence is absolutely illogical, doesn't make sense at all. So what do we do? Shall we just abandon the sentence here and start looking at the answer choices? No, we will try to figure out that what is it that the sentence really wants to say. The sentence wants to say that the butterflies come in 17,000 species. That's one piece of information. And the second piece of information is that every species has its own wing pattern. So these two pieces of information are really not related to each other. They are independent to each other. So we cannot use this comma plus verb ing modifier, because then the two actions are always connected. But that is not the case with this one. And we could predict this by paying attention to the context of the sentence, right? So these are the two independent meanings that needs to come out from the sentence. And that's why we say that the way the sentence is written, it presents illogical meaning. We have to find out an answer choice which will present logical meaning by disconnecting these two pieces of information, or these two uh, actions that have been connected by the usage of comma plus verb ing modifier. So now with this understanding, with this clear understanding, let's move on to our answer choice analysis. So we understand that choices A and B are wrong because of the usage of comma plus verb ing modifier. Definitely there is no connection between these two actions in the sentence. Choice C is wrong because of the usage of the word uniquely. There is a, again, we are dealing with modifiers here, adjective versus adverb. The original sentence actually says that every wing pattern is unique, a unique wing pattern. Let's go back into the original sentence. The wing pattern is unique. It is not that they do the action of displaying this wing pattern uniquely, as if everybody has the same wing pattern, but how they present that wing pattern is unique. That is not what the sentence wants to say. The sentence wants to say that the wing pattern itself is unique in every species. And that is why choice C is wrong and choice D is also wrong for the same reason. So choice D indeed is the correct sentence over here. But again, I will like to bring your attention to the structure of choices C, D, and E with the displaying gone, each uniquely displaying, they are talking about 17,000 species, each of which again is talking about 17,000 species, each of which displays a unique wing pattern. And this is the kind of answer choice that we were looking for, where these two pieces of information come across as independent pieces of information, that butterflies come in so many species, and all these species, every single species has a unique wing pattern. And choice D correctly presents that meaning. All right. So, yes, overall looks pretty easy, but again, you may get this sentence right, but that is not how we learn. In order to learn from a sentence, we need to pay attention to these nitty gritties, these usages in the sentence, so that our learning becomes cemented, our learning becomes stronger, our application becomes sharper. Right? So, what we are doing through this exercise is just not solving questions to get them right or wrong, but we are actually honing our skills. We are sharpening our skills of dealing in a much better way with the verb ing modifiers through these variety of sentences. Make sense? So, when you are pinned on what is being tested, right? Uh, Displaying a common pattern, but maybe other species don't display a pattern at all. Jaideep, see, we know that every butterfly has a wing pattern, right? Every butterfly has some pattern on their wing. There is no butterfly that does not have pattern on its wing. So when you ask this question, you are not thinking from a logical perspective. You are not even thinking from how you have looked at butterflies. Every butterfly has a certain pattern on its wing. And that's what the sentence is telling us, that yes, every species of butterfly has a very unique wing pattern. And yeah, so that's what it's saying. Does that make sense? In CNE, is it implying all the 17,000 species have the same wing pattern? Yes, Jaideep. It is saying that they have a wing pattern, but they display it in, or it may not be this, maybe it is not saying that they all have the same wing pattern, but it definitely is not saying that they have unique wing pattern. All it is saying is that they have a wing pattern, but they display it uniquely. So you can take it any which way, the meaning is still incorrect, right? Each uniquely displaying a wing pattern. They may have their own wing pattern, but they display it uniquely. and that is not the intended meaning of the sentence. We want to specifically say that the wing pattern in each species is unique. Does that make sense? I think with all those inputs that's coming in the chat box, you guys are pretty clear with this. Let's move on to our very last question, which is the most difficult question of the session. And this will truly test you on how logical you are and how logically you look at SC sentences. Okay. But again, just a reminder, tomorrow on Saturday we have the reading comprehension seminar, or webinar rather, and it will be conducted on our platform. Harsha will be there and I'll be there to teach you to teach you the skills to ace GMAT RC. And then Shweta will be taking a session on February 13 on quant algebra section. So if that section has posed problems for you, make sure that you attend this one. The registration links are again on your screen. So go ahead and click on that. Now, with this, we will come to the last question, leafy spurge. Okay. And before I solve this question, so see, I'm just looking at Jaydeep's question. So C and E, the display is unique. Absolutely correct. The action of displaying those wing pattern is unique. All right. No, Abhiroop, that's not the question. The mushroom question is called the giant fungus, but this is a leafy spurge question. This is a different question altogether. So if you guys are ready for that, I can show you that question. Here we go, and the link will be on your screen sometime soon. Um, Try to solve this question in 2 minutes. Just choose an answer and then come back so that we can start the discussion. Okay? All the very best. All right, we've started getting quite a few responses, and so far, so good. But I will, while we come back and start analyzing this question, I really want you to ask this yourself. How many of you are 100% sure of the selection that you have made and about the reasons for which the selections you have made? So just you don't have to answer that to me, but just answer yourself that, hey, I'm 100% sure what I have chosen, and I'm 100% sure why have I chosen and what is happening in that, and I know that's the way to go about the sentence. Because this will it will actually, show you that um how focused you are on meaning and looking at the right things while solving question. I mean, here we don't have, this is a very low risk environment, right? We don't have any timers going on our head, nothing to lose, nothing to gain, but imagine if you do not sharpen your skills at this stage and you move on to your mocks. Also, I'm not even talking about taking you to the real exam, but even if in your mocks, if you have not sharpened your skills when you go for mocks, your performance, it will surprise you, because you would say that, hey, I attended all those sessions and I was doing pretty well. What happened in the mock? Because how many times the luck would be on your side, or how many times will you be able to answer questions in that way? Okay, so satisfactory answer to is the appropriate use of comma plus with clause. Is there any solid reference for the same? Bookmark my brain. Wow, that's such an interesting username. We'll talk about that. It's little beyond our scope, but hold on till the end. I may give you some. I mean, we don't have anything, but I'll give you a very simple answer to that. Okay. All right. So I think I've gotten enough responses for this question, and while looking at this answer, let me quickly tell you how you have performed. 72% of you got this question right. Nobody voted for choices A and E. 72% vote came for choice B, which is the correct answer. 2 votes for choice C and 3 votes for choice D. So, yeah, B, C, and D. B is the correct answer. 72% of you got it right. C got 2 votes and D got 3 votes. So that's the statistics for this question. Okay, let's move on and see what's going on with this question. One of my favorite OG questions, very difficult, so many different layers of information in that. And you really, I'm telling you guys, if you did not use logic in this sentence, there is no way you can get this question right. Absolutely no way. And I'll prove it to you um, while we solve this question. Okay. So again, as I said, a very dense sentence. I'm going to break it down into pieces. About 5 million acres in the United States have been invaded by leafy spurts. So I understand that a huge amount of land area in the United States have been invaded by something called leafy spurge. Now, I exactly do not know what leafy spurge mean, but I understand that it has to be a vegetation because it says leafy spurge. And so the area has been invaded or has been taken over by this vegetation called leafy spurge. But the author is very kind and he explains what leafy spurge is. A leafy spurge is a herbaceous plant from Eurasia. We really don't need to understand, but we understand that it probably falls into the herb category, maybe. I don't know, doesn't even matter. But it's a plant that came from Eurasia with milky sap. So, this plant, known as leafy spurge, it contains milky sap that gives mouth sores to cattle. So, the milky sap, when taken in when taken in by the cattle, they get mouth sore. Okay, so far so good, everything makes sense in the sentence. From here on, the problem begins. So let's read what's going on in here. The sentence is saying displacing grasses and other cattle food, and the last part of the sentence is telling me rendering rangeland worthless. So How I understand what this sentence is saying. I see, comma plus verb ing modifier. Okay. So, is the sentence saying that milky sap gives mouth sores to cattle by displacing grasses and other cattle food? Does this, how aspect makes sense? I mean, how does it make sense? It is the milky sap that's giving mouth sores. Milky sap, it's a liquid, it cannot displace or replace grasses or other cattle food. So this how aspect does not make sense at all in the sentence. Are we talking about cause and effect, that because milky sap gives mouth sores to cattle, it displaces grasses and other cattle food? That's the effect of milky sap giving mouth sore? No, this cause and effect just does not make any sense in the context of the sentence. So we need to dig a little deeper and try to understand, hey, wait, the sentence is talking about something displaces grasses and other cattle food. The action of displacement of grasses and cattle food happen. So, what is the only logical entity that can perform this action? If we ask this question, the answer is very, very simple. Only the leafy spurge, or a herbaceous plant, which is nothing else but leafy spurge, only leafy spurge can displace cattle food and grasses in the United States. Replacement. Only a pen can replace a pencil, or a pencil can replace a pen for the matter of writing. Those two things have to be similar in their characteristics, right? Only a human being as a principal can replace or displace another principal in the school, right? That's the literal meaning of displace. You push something aside and you take its place, right? So grass and cattle food can only be replaced or displaced by another vegetation, and that another vegetation in the sentence is herbaceous plant, which is leafy spurge. So this action must be connected to leafy spurge and not to the milky sap. Okay. Now, my second question would be, is milky sap rendering the rangeland worthless? Again, the two analysis, if I do the how part, milky sap gives mouth sores by rendering rangeland worthless. Absolutely illogical. There's absolutely no connection between these two actions. So definitely that's not happening. Are we talking about cause and effect? Because milky sap gives mouth sores to cattle, do they render rangeland worthless? Absolutely illogical. This cause and effect is also not making sense in this sentence. So, what will make sense with rendering? Here, we'll have to think a little deeper. We'll have to really dig our heads in this part. So, rangeland is becoming worthless, right? That means the grazing grounds are becoming useless. Why? Because cattle cannot eat leafy spurge. Why? Because if they eat leafy spurge, then what happens? The milky sap in the leafy spurge gives them mouth sore, and mouth sores are painful. We all know that, right? Even from our experience as a human, we understand that mouth sores can be very, very painful. So why cattle, knowing that eating this particular vegetation gives me mouth sore, why will they go and eat in those grazing grounds where the grass and cattle food have been displaced by leafy spurge? So really, this is the effect, and the cause of this action is this piece of information over here. This is my cause. Because leafy spurge displaces grasses and other cattle food, cattle will not go to the rangeland, and that's why the rangeland will become useless, because cattle cannot eat leafy spurge, because the milky sap in the leafy spurge gives them mouth sore. This is the logical meaning that we need to infer from the sentence. So yes, comma plus verb ing modifier can be used for this particular action over here, which will present the effect of this action. But this action of displacing has to be connected with a leafy spurge in order to piece each and every piece of information together in the logical manner in the sentence. So there was no way just by looking at the grammar we could understand. Because if you look at the grammar, the sentence is absolutely correct. Grammatically, there is no error in the sentence. We have a clause that gives mouth source to cattle. Then we have comma plus two verb ing modifiers that are connected by and. Grammatically, absolutely correct structure of this sentence. No issues at all. But the logic is completely out in this sentence because it is saying that because mouth's milky sap gives mouth sores, it displaces grasses. Absolutely illogical. Because uh, milky sap gives mouth sores to cattle, it makes the rangeland worthless. Again, illogical meaning. Okay. So, as I told you, how did we infer the meaning? We had to do all of those. We had to put all of these, think about a puzzle piece. Think about of a puzzle. When you do your puzzles and you start picking up pieces to keep them together, you look at the picture that is drawn on the piece of puzzle. So when you do the puzzles, you pick up the visual clues, right? I'm thinking of a dinosaur puzzle because that's the puzzle that my boy likes to, my son likes to solve. So that's what he does. He picks up a piece of puzzle, and if it has a tail, then he knows that that has to be at the rear end of the dinosaur. So he has to start looking for the back, because the tail is connected to the back, and then the back has to connect it to the neck, and the neck has to be connected to the mouth, and the mouth has to have eyes and the mouth. So these are the visual clues that we pick up in our pieces of puzzle. Sentence correction is something like that. The only difference here is that we are taking logical clues. We are looking at the logical clues in the sentence to put each and every piece together in the sentence to complete my puzzle, to give the intended meaning, all right. And that's why we broke down the sentence in so many different ways, and that's how I gave you that what could be the inferred meaning of the sentence. Because see, I am not an expert on leafy spurge. I don't know how it displaces grasses or whatever, but I'm totally relying on the information given in the sentence to understand what really is happening in this sentence. And it was easier for me to understand that, okay, I can, we all are logical people. I could put 2 plus 2 together to say that, hey, if the cattle get mouth sores by eating leafy spurge, why will they go to those rangeland which has been totally taken over by the leafy spurge, right? So that's how I came about my inferred meaning, and you can also do so. And these are the questions that we have already answered. This is my logical inference of the meaning, that this is what this meaning should be talking about. And once I'm sure of the meaning, now I will start my answer choice analysis. And choice B indeed is the correct answer choice. Take a look at the structure of the sentence. It is saying that this part is fine. 5 million acres have been invaded by leafy spurge. Description of leafy spurge, um, that gives, oh, I think I'm, oh no, this is still choice A. Okay, yeah, let's take a look at choice B. So here, what's happening here is that with milky sap, if you take a look at it, it has put between two commas, right? It has been put between two commas. So, with this comma, what happens is that my dad gets this, that over here gets a little liberty to jump over to talk about a herbaceous plant or a leafy spurge. Both are the same thing. Okay. Now here we can talk about slightly talk about far away noun modification. Because with milky sap is placed between two commas, and it does not make sense to say that, it makes sense to say that milky sap gives mouth sores to cattle, but it does not make sense to say and displaces grasses. Okay, so we can understand that this comma pair gives me the liberty in the sentence for that to jump over and talk about leafy spurge and not talk about milky sap. So this that we see here, it has two verbs, gives and displaces, and both these verbs are related to that which is actually talking about leafy spurge and not about milky sap. That flexibility is there in the structure, and then everything falls in place. I have comma plus verb ing modifier that is correctly presenting the effect of the preceding action, which is displaces. That's my preceding clause that I have in the sentence. That displaces grasses and other cattle food, and because that happens, the rangeland becomes worthless. Now, many of the students reject choice B because they say, hey, all this while you were saying, pay attention to the meaning, pay attention to the meaning. But is not choice B changing the meaning by saying that it is the leafy spurge that gives mouth sores, but not the milky sap? Because in choice A, we read that it is the milky sap that gives mouth sores, but choice B is saying that it is the leafy spurge that gives mouth sores. Is it not changing the meaning? My question to you is it really changing the meaning? Think about it. Leafy spurge and milky sap, are they mutually exclusive independent entities? Is it so that uh, uh, a cow can go eat leafy spurge and not get mouth sore because it has not licked the milky sap? No, that's not the case. When we see from, just visualize the whole thing. When we see somebody or a cow eating the leafy spurge, we can say that, hey, why did my cow get the mouth sore? Because it ate leafy spurge. Now that's the technical part of it, that okay, leafy spurge has this particular chemical, milky sap, and that gave mouth sore. And then we could get into the detail of the technical things, that how it reacts with the saliva and this and that and gives the mouth sore. That's not the part of concern over here for me. The whole thing is that milky sap is contained by the leafy spurge itself. So there is no meaning change in saying that it is the milky sap of the leafy spurge that gives the mouth sore, or it is the leafy spurge that gives mouth sore. So this point of clarity, or the logical focus, should be there when you solve this question, to avoid that trap that, hey, you were saying meaning change, but here meaning is changing. Meaning is not changing at all. Not at all. Okay. So this is what choice B is correct. Okay. Next. So I've already described why choice B is correct. Let's take a look at choice C. If you look at choice C, we again see a beautiful parallel list over here between having and displacing. Okay. And both these verb ing modifiers are talking about herbaceous plant, which is fine. However, the parallel list is not logical, because having is presenting a quality, a trait, a feature, a characteristic, but displacing is actually talking about an action done by leafy spurgeon. We cannot have a characteristic and an action parallel like this in the sentence. But the logic was still fine in the sentence. Okay. But yes, I cannot say that the whole logic is fine, because once again, we don't know which clause comma plus rendering is now referring to. We have no idea about that. It just seems like just hanging out there. Okay. So that's wrong. Now, many of the students also ask this question, that why can't we say Like in the astronomer question, the exploding question, you said that okay, emitting went all the way back to the first main clause in the sentence. Astronomers have found evidence. Why is it not happening over there? Yes, if we say that okay, it is going back all the way up here to talk about, or even in the original sentence, why are we not saying that displacing is modifying this particular clause and this particular clause? Do you remember what were our two conditions to use the verb ing comma plus verb ing modifiers correctly? The first is that the modification has to be logical. The second thing is that, which is not there in this case. But you can say that, hey, because so much land area has been displaced, we can also say that has been invaded by leafy spurge. It makes sense to say that displacing grasses food is the effect of that action, or rendering rangeland worthless is the effect of that action. Okay, maybe, I'm not sure. But think about the second condition. What is the second condition? The doer of the modified action and the modifier action has to be the same. Okay. So if I'm considering have been invaded as my modified action, this is the action that these two modifiers are referring to, then who is the doer of this action? 5 million acres in the United States. Do you think that 5 million acres in the United States displace grasses and other cattle food? Or it's that land area that renders rangeland worthless? Absolutely not. So there is no way that these two modifiers in the original sentence, or for that matter, this modifier in choice C, can go back to refer to the main clause in choice in the original sentence. No, doesn't happen, because it is not meeting the conditions to correctly use the comma plus verb ing modifiers in this sentence. Okay. All right. So with this, we move on to choice D. Choice D looks very pretty, the modifier is so very, I mean to say, the parallel list looks so nice and so clean, and everything looks very, very pretty. But the main problem with this sentence is now this subject, 5 million acres in the United States, does not have a verb, because have been invaded has been turned into having been invaded. So that's one blatant error that we have. Also, the meaning error is here. Milky sap, that gives mouth sore. I accept this. But milky sore displaces grass. Milky sap displaces grasses? Absolutely not. It is the leafy spurge that does so. Milky sap renders rangeland worthless. Once again, illogical. So grammatically, the list looks very, very neat, very, very good, but definitely the meaning is absolutely distorted. So for these two grammatical and logical errors, choice D is wrong. And then choice E is wrong again. It repeats the same missing verb error, and it presents absolutely the same meaning that we saw in choice D, that it is still saying giving mouth sap, I accept, it is fine. But displacing grasses is again connecting to milky sap, and this meaning does not make sense. And once again, we have this modifier that is just hanging there. I don't know where to connect it to the sentence, because any of the connections will with a verb will not make sense in the context of the sentence. So choice E is also incorrect. So as we found out, choice B indeed is the correct answer choice for this particular question. And it did not come very easily. We had to do all that hard work, putting the meaning and context into consideration to come by this particular logic that we solved. I mean, on the face, the question may look very, very easy to you. I don't know what all methods did you use, what all you were clinging on to, or you were looking at, which aspects of the sentence to get to the correct answer. But it really requires this kind of analysis. I mean, if you really want to ace this particular modifier, this is the way you should be thinking about it, and not taking help of other grammatical aspects in the sentence. And although, all the sentences um, that we solved in this session today, they all had other errors, and that is a common thing to find with the official questions, because there are rarely sentences that will test you only on one singular grammar concept. But the idea to focus on these sentences was to actually focus on the usage of the comma plus verb ing modifier usages in all these sentences, to hone our skills, to sharpen our knowledge on this, but on the usage of this modifier. Okay, so if you've been able to do so, if you were focused on the usage of comma plus verb ing modifiers and not add so many other things in the sentences, you have learned something, I'm sure, from this session today. Does that make sense? Okay. Bookmark, coming back to your question. Thank you so much, Bookmark. This was a great confidence booster. Thanks for doing this. If you ever take a session on public speaking, I'll be the first to subscribe. Sure. Thank you so much for your compliment, Bookmark. But now let me give you the answer to your question. With. How do we deal with comma plus with? Although little out of scope, but yes, it's an useful information. See, with is a prepositional phrase modifier. And we know that a prepositional phrase modifier can modify both a noun and a noun and an action. So again, I don't want to put out any blanket rules out there saying that, hey, comma plus with will always be an action modifier, and comma plus and no comma with will always be a non-noun modifier. No, I don't want to say that. I will again tell you, pay attention to the context of the sentence and try to figure out there that, hey, what makes more sense in the context of the sentence? Does the use of with modifier make sense in presenting or describing a particular action, or it makes more sense in describing a particular noun? And then, evaluate and ascertain the usage of comma plus with modifier in the context of the logical meaning of the sentence. I know not many people like these kind of answers, but truly, if you really focus on the process and the meaning, you don't have to mug up so many concepts. We do have a lot of, say, about 10-15 concepts to mug up, but trust me, your reliance on these grammatical concepts will reduce so much if you start believing and putting your faith in the meaning based approach, because it's really about that approach, and it's really about that method that you use to solve each and every answer question, each and every question in SC, no matter what the difficulty level is. All right. Okay. I see a few questions. In B, isn't rendering being modified by both gives and displaces? No, Jaideep. Generally, when we have a case like this, that a comma plus verb ing modifier is preceded by two verbs, then it generally associates with just the preceding verb and not the far away verb. And I can cite another question. Systematic Seismic waves. There is one official question with seismic waves. Over there also we have a structure like that. But what I would, let's keep it simple. From my experience, I have seen that if we have a comma plus verb ing modifier and there are two verbs before it, then the comma plus verb ing modifier will only associate with the preceding action. It will not touch this one. It will not touch, or it will not go with the preceding verb. I've seen it in many sentences. Okay. Harshit, in option C, a herbaceous plant, Eurasia, having milky sap from Eurasia as a vital modifier, followed by, in order for having to link to plant should not be there for a common before, because I linked having to Eurasia. So, Harshit, as I told you right in the beginning of the sentence, every modifier must have a logical modification. If you go by the analysis that you have made, then none of the answer choices will make any sense to you. Because in choice A, we are saying Eurasia with milky sap. In choice B, we are saying Eurasia with milky sap, Eurasia having milky sap, Eurasia with milky sap, Eurasia that has milky sap. Then all the answer choices are wrong. But that analysis is not correct because, see, we cannot place from Eurasia anywhere else in the sentence. We have to say that it is a herbaceous plant from Eurasia. Okay. And that is why, because this part is constant in every answer choice, this modifier gets the flexibility to jump this noun and talk about herbaceous plant. Again, please read this article. If we are, I mean, it's there on our blog also, that when noun modifiers gets this flexibility to modify a little far away noun, these are the cases when you have this such a fixed entity like from Eurasia that cannot be placed anywhere else in the sentence, nowhere else. In that case, we will keep it, but all the other modifiers after that will have a little flexibility to jump back to the to connect to its logical entity. That's what I would say. Does that make sense? See, we have posted that link. Please take a look at that particular article. It will clarify a lot of things for you. It will this article presents the conditions when it can happen and conditions when you cannot jump over that preceding modifier. Okay. Okay, Jaydeep. So if I say I ran and swam, losing weight, verb or ing will only. Jaydeep, yes, let's go with that. Yes, that's what. It'll only take swam and it will not take ran. Anuj, I saw that a herbaceous plant from Eurasia should be in comma pair and hence selected option B. So, Anuj, you know that your reason is not the right reason to select answer. I mean, even if I don't put a comma after that comma that you see after Eurasia, look in choice A. It is not a herbaceous plant from Eurasia that has put between two commas. It is with milky sap in choice B that has been put between two commas. And that's why that can jump over with milky sap and refer to a herbaceous plant. So your reason was not right. In A, why can't that gives mouth sore jump and refer to herbaceous plant? Because that's a verb. If you are talking, because there is no comma over here. There is a structural difference. See, again, Jaydeep, do not learn the grammar like that. Learn the application. What is the difference between A and B? Although the words are same, there are those two little commas coming before with milky sap and after with milky sap. That gives the flexibility for that to jump. If I'm not telling that hey, I'm putting this as really an additional information, you can jump over it, till that time that will not jump. Do you understand? Do this analysis yourself, that where are you seeing these changes in the structure that is allowing that gives mouth sore to jump in choice B, but it is not allowing the same in choice A. It's all about application. All about application. There is no rule there. Okay. Okay, so with this, we have come to an end of this session. Again, the takeaways would be that don't worry about what kind of grammatical errors you see in a sentence, how complex the sentence is, what is the extent of the underline in the portion, whether it is written correctly or not. All you have to do is be loyal to your friend, author. You have to help him, or let's put it this way, all you need to do is focus on the meaning first, help him communicate his point. So, communicate his point is the logic, his point is his logical idea that he wants to present. And then, so first help him construe that logic and then use the correct grammar to talk about that. Okay, you just have to, again, it's meaning based approach. When you do the meaning based approach, all these errors will become irrelevant. Then you will not even think about these things when you look at the meaning of the sentence and do things correctly. Okay, so free supplements, once again, they are available till Saturday. Make sure that you make the best use out of it. And once again, a quick reminder, we have reading comprehension um, uh, webinar on Saturday. Myself and Harsha will be there to take this session. Shweta will join you on Sunday for this wonderful session on quant algebra. So, if algebra is creating problems for you, she will teach you how to solve even the most difficult questions in algebra in less than 2 minutes. So, do register. We run out very, very fast. Okay, next steps. What you should do in order to evolve, or in order to become a better version of yourself when it comes to verb-ing modifiers. Build your conceptual build your conceptual understanding. We did that a little bit over here, but if you want to get into the detail, definitely go to the free trial or take our course. And we have, you can see over here, we have two concepts only. Oops, sorry, not these here. We have two concepts dedicated only to verb-ing modifiers. So we really, really teach this modifiers in great details. So yep, make the best use out of that. Test your conceptual understanding. We have lot of application files, we have practice quizzes, we have quiz inside these concepts file, pre-assessment quiz and post-assessment quiz that always test your conceptual understanding. Also learn how to apply this. You do through the application files that we have in our every module. So this particular modifier module has 3 application files where you understand whether you've learned to, as I told you, learning has 2 aspects to it: learning a concept and then applying a concept. Unless you have learned to apply the concept as well, your learning cycle is not done. So make sure that you do that. Repeat for other topics. So by doing this, by doing these 4 things, we can master any concept in GMAT SC. So with this, create your account on e-GMAT and start learning right away. You can start with the free trial, and we have amazing content in our full-fledged course. You can also make use of that as well. With this, I would like to now close this sentence correction webinar on verb-ing modifiers. Thank you all very much for being so enthusiastic and so communicative with me, so responsive with me. I would also like to thank my 2 other supporters in this session who are at the backstage. Kanupriya for giving out all the for handling all the SM questions that you may have. And thank you to Juhi for taking care of all the technical aspects. She was the one who was providing you with all the links for the questions and the seminar links and the article links. She was the one who was fishing it out from our blog and have been providing you all the things. So thank you so much, Juhi. Thank you so much, Kanupriya. And on behalf of entire team e-GMAT, I thank each and every one of you for your time over here. It's late in India, I understand, but thank you so much that you're still here. And all the very best for your GMAT preparation. And as we always sign off by saying, happy learning.